Okay, there we go. So my name's Jennifer McConnell. I come from Dublin in Ireland. I've had a great privilege of living in many countries around the world, which I will touch on through the presentation. What led me to setting up Living Legacy was really kind of a combination of many different experiences. So I had worked in the Caribbean, I'd worked in the Pacific. A lot of that was that kind of crisis preparedness, also human resource management. And really, that whole aspect of we don't know how to deal with a crisis until we're in the crisis. And so, really, actually looking at whether it's something happens to us, something happens in work, or even if something happens to a loved one. Quite often, what happens is we're coming at things from a place of stress and often a place of grief. So, how do we actually start to really put advanced planning in place? How do we actually look at that crisis preparedness? And how can we actually look at not only the legacy that we want to leave behind, but the legacy that we can actually live? So when you're thinking about our day to day, we're now coming to the end of 2025. So quite often, many people will now be thinking about next year and the years to follow. And what are the things that you want to wrap up this year so you can actually have an enjoyable Christmas? And then what are the things that you actually want to do for the year to come? Now, I've just finished the fantastic book about the bullet journal. And I don't know if anybody has had that opportunity to actually read it. It's a great read, but it's a real eye opener. That aspect of in terms of how organized are we in our day to day? How much are we thinking about our forward planning? And there's that different concept as well about thinking about the things that we are working on in our life, in our business, whether we're caring for other people or we've got projects that we're working on. What are the things that we think we should be doing? And quite often they're the ones that actually hold us back because we have this burden of, I should be doing this. Oh, I should have, in Ireland now, we're just the point of having our taxes for submitted for last year. What are the things that we are weighing ourselves down with the shoulds? And then what are the things that we really actually want to do? So what are our big aspirations? Maybe you want to be a television host. Maybe you actually want to go and do workshops in advanced planning, end of life planning, legacy building. Maybe there are things that you want to do, travel the world. So what are the things that are the difference between what you are currently working on, the things you should be working on that you feel you should be, and the things you'd really like to do? So with regard to legacy building, a lot of it is not only just about thinking about the future, but really thinking about how we can live as fulfilled a life as we can each day. So I'm going to start a presentation now. You are welcome to ask questions. I have the joy of having Joe as a support here to me, but what I'm going to do is make space at the end so that people can ask questions and we can answer. As I think I missed my calling as a school principal, I am going to be setting exercises throughout this 45-minute session. So I would ask if you have a pen and paper, great. If you have a notebook that you're using for this festival, or even in terms of a notebook to help you plan, go grab it, grab your pen, even grab a pencil, sometimes easier to kind of rub out the things that you don't want to necessarily keep track of. But again, it's looking at all of those things of how to keep these notes so you can actually then reflect. So let me get started. Now, if anyone has any issue with regard to you can't see, please do let me know. So here we have, with regard to a very nice presentation from Prezi, and really just looking at the picture here. So you do see this picture of a woman. I would always term her as the kind of Celtic woman, but in it she has the bowl of seeds. And really that's the aspect of what is the outcome of what we're actually trying to sow so that we can harvest and enjoy for the future. Even in terms of organizing what we actually want to sow, what we want to plan for the future. How are we preparing the environment that we actually want to live, to be fulfilled by, and to enjoy? So can everybody see this here okay? Okay. So just to start off with, I suppose, kind of the little academic element of it is, what is legacy? So for our definition of legacy, it's really that lasting impact of what we leave behind, defined by our actions, our values, our relationships. So it's not really just about how we're remembered, but it's also that continuous influence on others, on society at large, but really to factor in as well that every single thing that we do has an impact on us and has an impact on other people. So when we actually think about the fact of, if you factor in every relationship that you have, good, bad, or indifferent, when we go, or even if we're no longer in that person's life, we still have a legacy in their lives. So we have people that have influenced us from an early age, people that are part of our lives now that maybe we would like to actually have them involved in our lives more often, or friendships that may have fizzled out. But really, that aspect of legacy is that we are creating a legacy for everybody in our life, and they're also creating a legacy in ours. So, what is that thing that we actually want to have as a legacy for us within their lives and vice versa? So, when we actually think then about the tangible aspects of legacy, so they're kind of the key aspects of the heirlooms, the properties, the written works, things that we actually pass on to other people. So they're the physical aspects of our legacy. So inevitably, we have inherited things from other people. Quite often, we might get, some ornament that we have absolutely no interest in or no use of, but we keep it because we think it would be rude and a disrespect to the person's memory. However, that might also have been something that they had no interest in, but they just handed it on to us so that they could get rid of it. But also factoring in, if we really look at, and I'm sure all of you have come across the concept of the death clean, is that aspect of how connected are we to the things in our life? When was the last time that we actually looked at every piece of paper, every ornament, every book, every DVD that we have from years ago? Why do we actually keep them? What is the meaning behind it? What's the story? And if we then suddenly were no longer here, and I would like to say in a nicer sense of if we won the lottery and we were going off for 12 months on a cruise and somebody else was there to pack up our belongings, what are the stories behind what we leave behind? What are the things that matter? And maybe who do we want to benefit from the things that we've accumulated and why? Because again, it's that aspect of some people feel that they may have an inherent right to like their mother's jewelry or to be a part of the family business. But that aspect of is what element within the legacy are they wishing to continue on? How are they using somebody else's legacy to shape their own? So when it comes to the tangible aspects, that they're definitely easier to actually consider what we actually can do and pass on to others, but also ensure that the meaning and the story behind it is clear. Then we have the intangible aspects of legacy. So again, this comes down to our values, teachings, our character traits, the influence that we have had on others, and also in the sense of that lasting cultural and moral impacts shaped by our love, our personal interactions and wisdom. Now, when we think about the state of the world, I think every kind of 5-10 years, we all go, oh God, the world is in a bad state. I don't think the world has ever been in a particularly amazing state. I would say probably my favorite time was within the first couple of months of the pandemic, where there were no airplanes flying, everybody was indoors. We got that greater sense of just landing as to where we actually were then. But of course, that element of being stuck then has quite often stayed with us. And it's that sense of having missed out or the relationships that we couldn't actually connect with because we were all kept apart. However, there are those things of within the legacy, who are you to you? What are the things that you feel are your legacy? So if you had died yesterday, what is your legacy today? And using this as a way to actually consider your next year's plans. What is the legacy? What part of your legacy do you want to actually start working on today, over the next couple of months, over the next couple of years? What is it that you feel is your legacy? So in terms of living your legacy now, it's not just about what you pass on to others through your financial inheritance or your big win achievements, your memorials, your family business, even in terms of your work, as well as things like volunteering. What part do you play in your community? How has that influenced and shaped you? And how do you then contribute to that to help influence and shape others? But this is all about the legacy in how we embody our values in our daily living, and how do we actually know that we're living a life fulfilled? So looking at our actions, the choices that we've made that lead us to where we are now, the decisions that we have coming up for the future, and also the relationships that matter. So this is a bit of a snapshot of my legacy as such. So one of the exercises that I'm going to do is on the top right-hand corner where you see the heart with all the different words is what I would term as my I am. So I'm going to talk you through that. And I know actually Anna, who did one of the presentations on Friday, did a really interesting kind of about 20 questions that was really thinking about living your life, but also planning for your death. What are the things that you want? Within this is really about that legacy piece of who are you right now? Who are you to others? Who are you to yourself? You'll see then on the bottom right, there's a snippet of, I suppose, kind of an overview of life. I recently celebrated my 50th birthday, so I had a great gathering of loved ones. But I also have had work that I've done that has really been influential in terms of giving me great opportunities, and also the part that I've played within a bigger picture. I'm an aunt to 5 nibblings, and they are in the States, so I don't get to see them that often. But what I do get is that element of keeping up to date with them, what's going on in their lives. And then also in terms of friendship. So my friend Amy there is in that picture. I was in Seville with her this weekend, and I was in Norway with her last year where that photograph was taken. She lives in Australia. So again, even in terms of the different adventures I've had in my life, who are the people that are still part of my life from that? And then on the top left of that picture on the bottom right is actually what I hosted when I lived in Papua New Guinea. Was an expat orphans Christmas. So for all of us that were not going to be with our family, how could we actually, hey Joanna, I just see you come on there, how we actually came together so that people weren't on their own. And it was just great fun, great celebrations. On the bottom left, then you'll see some photographs, and they were my trials. They were the trials and tribulations and the things that were really a huge challenge for me. I had an accident, that bridge that you see in the middle, I tripped and fell off that 9 years ago and broke my back. And thankfully wasn't paralyzed or unconscious, but that was a huge influence to me creating Living Legacy, because that element of things happen where people joke about, oh, well, if I got knocked down by a bus, it's like these things do happen. So how are you putting your plans in place? I've also, you see the picture of my spine there, in the corner of one of those vertebrae is the broken vertebrae. I'm also a part carer for my dad who has vascular dementia. And thankfully, he's doing reasonably well. But again, it's that element of the inevitable decline. What are the things about his legacy that we want to honor? How do we actually want to help make his life as comfortable and fulfilling as we can? There were a couple of other things that happened, and definitely they have all influenced who I am right now. But again, giving me this great opportunity to even have those experiences. And then on the top left are the adventures, the great funds, the living abroad, traveling, doing some academic work, working in radio. I have a wonderful dog. And just again, how do we actually honor all of the things that have happened in our life to date? And how do we use it to shape and look at the things that we've yet to create for our life as well? So when I'm asking here is, what does legacy mean for you? You'll see a picture of Ed Sheeran, which I'm hoping I will be able to press play on in a second that you will hear. But when you're actually factoring it in legacy, does legacy mean inheritance? Does it mean financial donation to a charity? Does it mean the part that you're playing in your communities? Or is it what you're leaving behind once you're gone? So in terms of even looking at how we build our life, how we build our legacy, what do these terms actually mean for us? So what does living life fully feel like and look like for you? What does legacy mean? And how do you know that you've actually built your legacy? What are the aspects in terms of the legacy yet to create? So I came across, there was actually somebody had directed me to this. Ed Sheeran, I think last week, was on Graham Norton. Now I'm going to press play, and if Joanne, Nuttall, if you can actually just come on microphone and let me know if you can see it or hear it or not, would be great. But I thought it was really interesting that somebody who is famous, who's quite well known, people enjoy him for his music. He seems like a very nice guy. But even in terms of him talking about having a plan for when he dies, how is that going to influence other people to start thinking about their plans? How much do we actually start to look at the legacy that the people we admire actually are already doing? And is it something that we feel is so far removed from us? So when we look at the likes of Taylor Swift, and she's done this phenomenal tour, and she's now coming out with a docu-series and stuff, that's element of, it's nearly like those people can do it because they have money, they have resources, but oh, we couldn't because we don't have that. But there are different ways that we can actually have a legacy that may be inspiring to others. We don't have to have the big money, much as it would be nice. We don't have to have the big teams, but actually that element of what is important for us in our legacy. So I'm just going to press and see if it still comes up.
We know, a lot of your articles were kind of the mathematical symbols multiplied. So play, is this, so this is a new era.
Yeah, so this, I kind of see this as, it's called stereo. It will be like play, pause, rewind, fast forward, stop.
And I don't want to bring everyone down, but you have already got a plan for a posthumous album.
What? Yeah, I think that's just sensible. Friends die without wills, and it's fucking chaotic. And all I'm saying is I have a I have a plan for when I pass away. I know what songs I want at my funeral. I know where I want to be buried. I think that's a sensible thing to have. And there's so many.
Ed, you're very organized.
But I think that there's a lot of posthumous albums that have come out of artists that we know and love that I don't know if they'd have wanted them out in that sequence or the mixes of it or blah, blah, blah. So all I'm saying is when I pass away, the thing that comes out is the thing that I want to come out.
And has that album got a title?
Eject.
So I hope you can see the presentation back again, but it's a really interesting concept of if something happened to you now, what are the things that you actually want in your memory? Is it a park bench? Is it a photographic album? Are there things that you actually want to do to really honor the people that are in your life, but also to honor your own? Now, I come from Ireland where we're not great at honoring ourselves. And people unfortunately think that in Ireland, oh, the Irish do death great. We don't. We do other people's death. Like we will happily sit around somebody else's coffin and have sandwiches and cup of tea and have a chat about the person. But in terms of the concept of thinking of our own death, we bulk away from it. We actually avoid it. So in terms of having this conversation about end of life planning is really about that aspect of legacy. When we are being honored, what are the things that are being presented representing us? So again, at a funeral, what are the things that, if you're having a religious funeral, you may have things that are brought to an altar that symbolize to other people what you have meant to them. But the same way, if you actually look at a celebration or a commemoration of yourself, if you came back as a fly on the wall, would you look at it and go, oh God, I wouldn't have done that, or I wouldn't have said that? So what are the things that we actually want recognized and remembered in our life as well? So this is what I would put out as a consideration for legacy planning. So considering your values and your purpose, really looking at that aspect of if you were to write a memoir of your life, how have you lived your life to date? What values have guided you and why? What values do you want to strengthen? And what purpose has driven you? I think also adding into that as well, who are the people that have influenced you over your life? It could be that your parents, it could be a teacher, it could be certain people that you may have only had a very brief interaction with. But who are the things and what are the things that really define who you are? Then looking at your storytelling and your personal reflections. So like I had an uncle that died in June, and what was really interesting was he had boxes of photographs from, he was born in the 1940s, but photographs from when he was a kid right through to today. And it was that element of, it was really interesting to see how sentimental he actually was, which I would never have associated with him. But again, it was the stories. It was the way to connect with people, to go, oh my God, look at these photographs we have of you all together as kids. And the stories that were then shared with that. I have other family relatives that love to document the stories. So even on the back of photographs, they would write, who the people were, the date, and what the event was. We now have so many things that are on our phone, on our computer, that we don't actually look at. Like how often have you gone into your phone and actually deleted the photos that don't matter? As I age, my eyesight goes, so I tend to take photographs of labels to actually be able to zoom in and see what they say. But my family don't need to inherit that screenshot of the washing instructions of a top. So it's those things of how do we actually really filter down what matters? When was the last time you actually looked at your phone and saved all the photos from your phone? If you have an Apple, then you have the iCloud. But it's that level of, but when did you last print these photographs? When have you actually put something into an album? When have you actually gone, oh my God, do you remember this? And quite often we have about 3 or 4 photos of the same pose, but you might have blinked in one, you might have smiled in another, somebody else might have been looking away. But why not just pick one, print it off, put it into a photo album, frame it, but actually look at the life that you've lived to date and really enjoy those memories. Looking as well as at journals. Any recordings? Have you been in interviews? Have you been on? I've had the privilege with the choir I'm in. We are involved in a Christmas Eve show that was recorded the other week. The last time I was on that same national television was I was on a mass carrying up a Bible to the altar. That is the only thing of me on television. I don't necessarily want that coming back up for other people to see, but definitely the choir performance will be something that I will treasure. But are there things that you have that you maybe have written, life lessons, things that you've actually got from other people? And then how do you actually want to be remembered? But also, how do you want to remember yourself? So again, I personally think that quite often we put these things as oh, I'll get around to it when I'm retired, or I'll get around to it when I have more time. But we're never going to be given more time. It's how we utilize what we have with the time that we have yet to live, but also to recognize the time that we've enjoyed living so far. So passing on your knowledge, this is something else as well, as in terms of the mentoring. Are you involved in actually helping other people to help them shape their life, shape their legacy? How are you involved in your community? Maybe you're involved in a local school. Maybe you're involved in an active age group. Are there certain things that you're contributing to? And how can you actually then help create even that succession piece, which is part of advanced planning as well, as how do you actually hand the baton over to the next generation? How can they learn from your institutional knowledge in a workplace? How can they learn from your, I suppose, lived experience within the community as well? How are you helping to shape others? Maybe their family, maybe their friends, maybe they are a younger generation as well. So then also looking at relationships and your communication. So how are you communicating all of this to your loved ones? Maybe you're estranged from your loved ones and it's a very difficult conversation to even consider having. Is there a way that you could even write a letter? Doesn't mean that you have to send it, but is there a way that you can actually try and make your peace with relationships that may not necessarily be as harmonious as they once were? Who are the people that are in your life? How can you talk to them about these things as well, and about recognizing your legacy? But again, the legacy lives on through others, but you need to start with yourself first. So exercise time. So get your pen and your paper. So what I want you to think about is, who are you to you? And when you're starting to think about it, do you automatically go to the negatives? Are you going, oh, well, you know, I'm disorganized, or I procrastinate? Or actually, how do you recognize the goodness within you as well? So to get started, and for those of you who were at the presentation last year, you may have done this already, so let's do it again. But what is your I am? So this is just going to be a very quick, I want you to write down the first things that come to your mind. So describe yourself in 3 words. Now describe 3 values that are important to you. And if you're not sure where to begin, like, how does kindness sound to you? Family, relationships, honesty, transparency. There are so many different things that you consider. But when you think of values, what are the 3 words that really you feel are important to you? The next thing then are your 3 achievements. What achievements are you really proud of? It can be something that happened years ago. It might be something that's only happened the other day. But just as a highlight, what 3 achievements are you really proud of? And then what 3 ambitions do you have? So it might be you want to perform at Wembley Stadium, and that's fine. That's an ambition. Or it might be that you just want to tidy up your bedroom today. So think of 3 ambitions that you really want to put on your want list, not your should list, but your want list. Oh. Okay. How are you getting on with that? And if you haven't yet had a chance to fill those in, just take note of it and maybe come back to it later today. So then the next thing, what are your comforts? So what are your go-to comfort rituals? So the way I would frame it is, if you're not feeling well, What are the things that you go to, or if you've had a really tough week and it's a Friday evening, you come home, you're just like, oh, what are your go-to clothing? Maybe you like to wrap yourself up in pajamas. Maybe you like to wrap yourself in a duvet, or you have certain clothing that are just your comfort. Maybe you have certain food that you like. Are there certain TV shows or a book that really helps you just feel nourished? And is your comfort pampering versus rest versus exercise? I know for me, exercise is definitely not my comfort. But it's that aspect of what are your go-to things that just make you feel snug, safe, and secure? Let me just give you another minute there. Yeah, dressing again, nice. Okay, so, oops, come out of that now. So the next thing, what are your joys? What makes you laugh? I think Anna actually on Friday had said, like, what makes you belly laugh? So what makes you laugh? I know for me, it's things like seeing cows running. Don't know why, it just always sets me off. Also, unfortunately, small children falling. I laugh every time I see that happening. But what are the things that make you laugh? What clothes do you feel good in? Do you have certain clothes? So, like if you were going out for dinner with friends or you were going to an event, that you have certain clothing that is your go-to. You know, you look good, you feel good. What's your favorite food? And people always talk about, oh, like your last supper, but that not necessarily might mean that that's the food you want to eat if you're going out fine dining. But what's your favorite food? Even what are your favorite drinks? And if you're alone at home, or even if you like to actually dance or sing with others, what music do you sing and or dance to? I just realized I favorite food again. So I must have been hungry when I was doing this slide. Um, so even in terms of, again, what are your favorite things? What are your joys? And it might be going to, like, I know for me, I have a set ritual that I love to do if I have a day date with myself, which I love going into a bookstore. I love to have a wander around, maybe go into a museum, love going in for Japanese food and then on to the cinema. And then even just going to a coffee shop afterwards, writing in a journal, you know, just have a lovely evening, come home, have a bath, go to bed. That for me is a joyful day. And again, you'll note that there's nobody else features in that day of joy, but it's what is your ideal day? Maybe it's being around family. Maybe it's just having a day for yourself. And how often do you actually remind yourself and practice your joys? If you don't, then can you start to schedule that in? Maybe once a month, once a quarter, give yourself a joy day. And if your name is Joy, then every day is a joy day. But in that sense of how do you actually honor the things that really bring you to light and to life? Ah, Emma, we'll have a date, absolutely.
I put that in just before you said my perfect day involves nobody else, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. Emma, with you, I'll make an exception. 90s Britpop, absolutely. Gold cowboy boots, nice. Oh, lovely. And that's the thing as well, is maybe standing still is your joy. Listening to lovely music. I love going to see like choirs performing, you know, so I'm not going to be singing along or dancing to that, but what are the things that really you feel uplifted, but also that you feel whole? I think quite often we can focus on the HOLE in our life rather than the WHOLE. So then your ideal environment. So when you're actually going, if you're having a date for yourself, or if you're actually going away on holidays, what is your ideal environment? Even do you have this at home? Do you prefer the indoors or the outdoors? Do you like a warm or a cool environment? Quiet or noisy? Scented or neutral? So maybe you might like to go to a cottage in the countryside and you might have a certain scented candle. You might like to actually just be hearing the birds, but you might want a log fire and it to be warm. You might like to look to the outdoors, but not necessarily be in the outdoors. So really just think about that. Like what's your ideal environment? And how can you actually create that where you live? We can often look at our house and go, oh, really, it needs to be painted, or I need to tidy it, or I need to, you know. And again, we can get caught up in doing something like a death clean. And I caught myself this year going, I'm very good at reviewing and decluttering, and then reviewing and decluttering. And instead of just actually stopping and going, okay, now how do I create the ideal environment? I seem to just keep getting rid of things. So it's that aspect of how can you actually embody and embrace the life that you want to live rather than thinking it's further into the future? How about having it in the now? What are the things that you can repurpose? Are there things that you can actually discard? Maybe somebody else would get better use out of it. But how can you actually have that perfect environment so that you can actually have the perfect joys, but also the ideal comforts when you need? And then, who are your tribe? So for the fun times, for the sad times, those who support and cheer you along, those who show up, and those who push you to do better. I know for me, over the last number of years, has been a real reflection of the changes in my tribe. The tribe I had 30 years ago are very different from the people that are really active in my life now. There are people I may not have seen in a number of years, but that doesn't mean that they're not part of my tribe. And yet there are other people that I may have felt should have been more active as my tribe, but their life has gone on a different path. So how do we really recognize who is actually active in our life now and who are the people that are important to us? Where do we feel there might be a disconnect? Our expectations versus their ability to show up. And the same way, somebody else may expect us to be there for them in a certain way and they don't feel that that's been met, but we've never talked about it. There can often be as well conversations where hurt has been involved. There's a mismatch in terms of what we actually want to give, but what we want to receive from each other. So really looking at that. And again, some people that you want to go to in your sad times are not the same people as your fun times. And those who challenge you, it's not about actually criticizing you, but actually pushing you to do better, to make you think about different things, to understand a different perspective. Yeah. And technology is a great thing. You know, it can be really good, but I also feel as well there's an element of where we can rely on it too much, where people think that by liking a Facebook post, that means that they've checked in on your life, or they think they know what's actually happening in the day to day. So how do we communicate that? And if we're feeling stuck and feeling that actually we're not going to be heard, or I really don't know how to start that conversation, are there supports that you can benefit from? Can you go to a counselor? Can you go to a therapist? Can you talk to another friend or family member to help support you through that process? So then, before you leave a legacy, you must first live it. So consider your legacy planning as a way to create your life plan. And for that, then, what is your life yet unlived? So here we are at a festival about death and dying, and I'm talking about life and living. But there is that great aspect of how do we actually celebrate ourselves? If you were to have a gathering in your honor, where would it be? What will you wear? How will you look and feel? How will you prepare? What food will you eat? What drinks will you enjoy? What music will be played? Where will the venue be? And who will be there? So as I mentioned, I had my 50th celebration in June, and there was a lot of people couldn't make it. And that was fine because I ended up having, and actually Joanne was here, took me out for a very lovely dinner. So it's those things of how do we actually celebrate each other? Doesn't all have to be together as a group. Some people are not group people. Some people prefer, like myself, I prefer the one-to-one. So how do we actually look at how we celebrate ourselves? Sometimes we wait for the big number. We wait for it to have a 0 or a 5 in it before we'll actually feel that we should do a celebration. Sometimes we might wait to Christmas. We might wait to Easter. We might wait to the birthday. But could we just have a party for the sake of having it? Are we afraid that people wouldn't turn up? Are we afraid people will be too busy? How do we actually know that we are having a celebration for ourselves? And sometimes it might just be, how do you celebrate you having a day for yourself, having that day date, wearing the outfit that you really want to wear, having the nice perfume and the toiletries, going to the event that you want to go to, having the nice food. But isn't it nice if you can share that with other people and have them also get to know you a little bit better by the things that you really want as part of your celebration? Yeah, Six by Nico with Joanne was a fabulous, fabulous event. Dark rum, Emma. I have to say, definitely not my drink of choice. Mine would be a nice pint of Guinness. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to like me as much as I used to like it. So there are just a few things to kind of get you started to think about that. So what I want you to think about is, what is your legacy right now? So considering your life and legacy lived to date, what are the meaningful moments, the things that you're proud of, the lessons you've learned, the positive impact you have had on your immediate and wider community? So really factor that in. I think quite often we can take our day-to-day for granted, but actually we may have had a huge positive impact on somebody else just by something that we said, by showing up. And quite often that's probably the biggest thing, is how do we show up for ourselves, as well as how do we show up for others? So in questions for reflection, your legacy impact. Consider what you hope others will remember about you. The lasting influence of your values, your actions and relationships, and how they will continue long beyond you. I remember somebody that had been a huge part of my life many, many years ago, and they died 4 years ago. And when we were at their funeral, the brother stood up and said, you know, he was just such a wonderful man, which he was. But they said, like, and he wasn't judgmental. And afterwards, a lot of us went, I don't know who they were talking about, because he was the most judgmental person we had ever met. So there's that element of the rose-tinted glasses and how we're remembered. But it's that thing of actually his friends and family, we all had a good laugh about it afterwards, because we knew him as a good man, but he was judgmental. And it's that aspect of, yes, it might be something that we feel, oh, that's not a good attribute, but it's a part of who we are. We're not all perfect. We will never be perfect. But those things are quirky to us, but they'll also be remembered long after we're gone, whether we want them to be remembered or not. So what is our legacy impact? What are the lessons and values? So what are the lessons and values that you want to pass on to others? It might be you were left your grandmother's recipe for stew and actually you found a way to perfect it. How can you pass that on to somebody else? What are the things that, like, we can tell people based on our experience, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're in any way obliged to take our learning for them. But what are the things that we feel helped us have a bigger and better life? How do we define the essence of what you stand for? How do we guide future generations through your experiences as well? What are those memories and stories that you can actually share with others? And that helps them get to know you that little bit more. And then reflect on how you want your story to be told. So storytelling serves as a powerful mechanism for conveying your legacy. How do we encourage others to share your journey, the lessons you've learned along the way, the adventures that you've had? I still hear great stories about family members who I never met, but the people that they were, the adventures they had, has long lived on beyond them. And then looking forward in terms of what is your life yet unlived? What are your inspirational goals? What are the things you'd love to do? Like, I have certain things I'd love to do. I'd love to make documentaries. Have never made one in my life. But it's that thing of, well, if I'm going to do it, do I need to get support? Do I just record things on my phone? Why am I doing it? So when you're thinking about your goals, think of the why. And actually, one thing that I found really interesting is in a program I was involved with was ask 5 whys for when you're deciding on doing something, or if something doesn't feel right. And each time you go to a why, it actually allows you to delve deeper into the true reason for something to be done or not to be done. So again, considering your legacy, how is it motivating you to strive for more meaningful achievements? How do they reflect your core values? How are you living them? And how can you use that to help others as well? And then what's going to give you that feeling of completion? What will give you that sense of peace? Maybe you are putting your end of life plans together, but there are things that you're holding off. But what would it feel like to actually know that you've got it all done? What are the things that you've been procrastinating? Why are you procrastinating it? And then like that, how can you actually ensure that really thinking about the outcome? What would it feel like to have it complete? Is there a fear about, well, if I get it done, I don't know what next to do? But keep taking those steps forward. And even if it's small steps each day towards a bigger picture, rather than leaving it as a big whole thing to be done as one. So in terms of using legacy planning to guide your advanced planning, from all the things that we've actually been looking at now, here's a few things. So if you factor in your advanced planning in terms of your legacy, your finance, your health, and the legal aspects. So here we've been talking about legacy in terms of your values, your achievements, the people in your life, your adventures, memorable moments. But then in terms of how is that reflected by the things that you've accumulated in your life, your assets, all the things connected to you for your bank accounts, tax reliefs, all those elements, even in terms of your health. Maybe your legacy has been maybe health issues over the years. Maybe you're facing health issues that you know you're going to have to focus on for the coming months or years. How does that inform putting your advanced plans in place? How does that actually contribute to your legacy as well? And then in terms of the legal side of legacy as well, have you looked at putting a will together, a power of attorney? How do you actually want to be cared for? How do you want to be commemorated? And how do you want to hand things over to the next generation? So when you're thinking of your care considerations, you've already started to do it. You've been thinking about your comforts, your joys, and your ideal environment. So factoring in, if you wanted to be cared for, if something happened to you, so like 9 years ago when I broke my back, I had to consider how I wanted to be cared for because I wasn't fully able to care for myself. So what were my go-to things? What were the things that would make me happy? What was my ideal environment? Being an Irish person, I want the heating on all day and all night. However, my family are not of the same ilk. So when I'm staying at home with my family, there is that negotiation and that kind of, I suppose, what's the word? No, it's gone out of my head. But, you know, how do we negotiate what will work for us all? But when we think about our comforts, do other people know what your comforts are? So if somebody's going to be your carer, do they know what clothes you want when you're not feeling great? Do you know what food is your go-to food? And especially if we have something like a flu or a cold, our taste buds change. What are our joys? What are the things that we love? Again, it could be clothing, it could be perfumes or toiletries, it could be the types of shows that we watch, the people that are around us, and our ideal environment as well. Then in terms of your support network, your legal representatives, who are your tribe? Who are the people that you would want to be your representative for your medical decisions, for your enduring power of attorney? There are some people that you have great fun with, but you're not going to ask them to be the person to be in the hospital negotiating with consultants. So again, who are the right people for those roles? And then when you're thinking about your eulogy, your I am is it. And if you, one of the things that we did actually myself and Emma, along with James last year at the Lifting the Lid Festival was we did do the I am. And one of the tasks, I suppose, that I set was if you think of the 3 words that you use to describe yourself, now ask everybody in your life to describe you in 3 words. and see what 3 words will come back, because there could be some overlap, there could be some repetition, and inevitably most people are going to be nice. Nobody's going to be saying horrible things to you or about you. But when you factor in, if somebody was to stand up after you're gone and actually give a eulogy about you in your life, is it accurate, or is it just from their perspective? And remembering that everybody only knows us in a certain way. Not one person gets to know the whole. So how do we actually make that easier for them? By actually sharing who you are to you and with them. And then your commemoration. Think of your celebration event. How would that translate? The difference is you won't be there unless you decide to have, a celebration of life before you go. But also, in thinking about all of the end of life things, why wait till the end? Why not do all of these things now? Have that celebration event, buy that nice outfit. And what I would say as well, and quite often people ask about the joys and the comforts list, is Christmas is coming up. That is your Christmas list. So if you like certain perfumes, certain clothing, certain things that you want in your house, get other people to buy it. And therefore, you have that element of actually creating that environment that you really want. So you've got gin. I see that with Michelle. How can you use the gin to make other things? Can you have a gin trifle rather than a sherry trifle this Christmas? And again, it's those things as well of looking at all of the things that you have in your house. Why do you have them? If you don't drink gin, but you have a lot of gin bottles, can you give them to other people to enjoy? Can you go to a party and that's your gift? There are ways that we can actually fine tune what we have around us and what we have within us and for us as well. So the dull bits of advanced planning and legacy building is considering your legal and practical documents as well. What are the things that you have in place? What are the things that you yet to have organized? Have you gone and spoken to a legal advisor? Is there free legal advice that you can get as well? And how does this represent your legacy? So again, it might be in terms of the things that you've accumulated that you want to give and gift to other people. It might be the finances that you've accumulated. Can you use more of it for yourself? Are there things that you're setting up to prepare for your life yet to live? In terms of putting in your care considerations, how are you setting aside money for that? And one of the key things we spoke about how people connect with each other is your digital legacy. What is it that will live on beyond you? I tried a few months ago to de-Google my life and I failed miserably. And as I started to go through everything in my Google emails, I realized how much I'd accumulated. So what can we do to actually try and streamline our life? How can we make sure that we're setting things up for people to know how to access things on our behalf? I will say on behalf of one person here as well, make sure somebody knows your phone code. How have you got a 2-step authentication? And again, this is an element as well, is looking at your digital legacy. What photographs have you accumulated over the years on your phone, on your computer? Are you enjoying them? Are you using them? Can you share them with other people? Like there's something lovely about printing off photos and actually sending them to somebody so that they can enjoy them too. Now, obviously, it's something that's relevant to them. There's no point sending them something obscure, but it's that aspect of how are we living our life? How are we creating our legacy? And what can we do to really fine tune it and to honor who we are? And then your memorial and ritual planning. So how do you want your remains to remain? How does that tap into your values? Do you want to have a water cremation versus a flame cremation? There were some fantastic presentations over the weekend about burials, about coffins, about things to consider. So again, it's those type of things. If by putting these plans in place for the future, it means that you're actually protecting your present, but giving yourself peace of mind. It also means that you're including people to know you on a better and deeper scale. Who are the people that are important to you and what's important to you? Do you actually want to make a donation that will honor your legacy going forward? And then in terms of a legacy review, I know we're coming close to the time now. So looking at your I ams, your comforts and your joys, your environment, the people in your life, your achievements, because quite often we don't actually recognize all of our achievements. We think of the big, big things that have happened, but actually there could be very small things that have made a difference to other people as well. Our photos and stories, our financial planning so that we can actually live a full life and legacy yet to live. And then how we formalize our wishes and our intentions by going through all of the other points as well. So within this then, this is a little bit more about me. So I'm the founder of Living Legacy, an advanced planning facilitator. I do one-to-one concierge service, which actually helps people put their plans in place, consider their legacy, start to do things like gathering their photographs, getting the stories together, and also end-of-life considerations as well. So I do various guest speaking, of which I'm delighted to be here today, and also a writer, an accredited life and executive coach, a mentor, an end-of-life planner, and obviously as a carer for my father with dementia. I do come from a HR background, and I've had some great adventures along the way, which have really led me to create Living Legacy and to know the importance of not waiting for a legacy to be left behind, but actually to live it. So I specialize in advanced planning through succession planning for organizations and end-of-life planning and advanced planning for individuals as well. So in terms of ways we support you through coaching and mentoring, end-of-life planning, succession planning, and legacy building. And then also in terms of the next steps, how I can help you. So obviously you can take everything that we've covered today and go off and actually see what you can do for yourself. Or if you're interested to talk to me further, here are a couple of different ways. I will have a legacy building program that will be starting in January. So if you're interested in that or any of the other opportunities that I can support you, you can also sign up to a monthly newsletter. So please check out livinglegacy.ie, and I would encourage you to sign up to the newsletter. Get rid of all your other mailing lists and subscriptions, apart from Emma's, myself, anything to do with lifting the lid. But anything that you're not reading, anything that you're not actually enjoying. And I will give a shout out to Joanne Begley here, who has a beautiful book series called For After I've Gone. So check out forafterivegone.com and actually to look at how you can start to journal and capture your life lived to date, how you can start to really consider the things that you want to support you when your time comes, but how you can now make space for your life yet to create. And with that, I'm going to read you a poem called The Dash. Some of you may have heard this already, some of you may not. So it's by Linda Ellis, and it says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud, oh, hang on, I can't even read the end, of the things they say about how you lived your dash? So I think that's a lovely way to actually think about it's the beginning, the end, it's everything in between. It's the things that we actually want to really live and enjoy and have that life fulfilled. Because we'll be long gone, but we're here now. So what do we actually want to do with it? So thank you very much for your time. It's been lovely actually being here with you. And I hope you have found this in some way beneficial to consider your life planning and your legacy building as well. So I'm happy to take any questions if anybody wishes. And Jo, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Jen. I've just said I've put your socials in the chat, which we've got some lovely comments from people going through. There's just a minute or two if anybody's got some questions. I think there's so much positivity and so many lovely comments, as I say, that when you get a chance to read, you will love. I think I've put your socials in. I'm going to put the Lifting the Lid socials in as well. As people will know, I'm sure by now, this is a volunteer-led festival. So if you want to support it by buying merch or donating, that will be fabulous. And remember, you can download the chat if you want to get Jen's details or you want to get us. Jen, I'm going to put your details in again, just so they're right at the end.
Yeah, please do. And if any of you want to just have a quick chat and, you know, maybe you're not ready to sign up to any programs or like that, just drop me a message. You can reach me at jennifer@livinglegacy.ie. and you can book a call. We can have a quick chat. I'm happy to help in whatever way is possible. I am conscious as well, there are people that are from different countries all around the world. So if I'm not in a position to help you, I may be able to direct you to people that can nearer to you. But again, we have the joy of technology, and I think this is a way that we can connect. But I really want to thank Victoria and the two Joes for the opportunity of being here at the Lifting the Lid Festival. I think it's such an important gathering. And I know that I think we've all benefited from the different talks, and it would be lovely if we could do it every weekend, although I think they might have breakdowns if they had to organize this on a more regular basis.
No, definitely.
yeah, for sure. But I think for all of you that have been here, there's definitely something about legacy that resonates with you. So it's actually giving yourself that time. Like, we've got 6 or 7 weeks to the end of the year. How can you actually give yourself some space to really reflect, to start to gather, to start to clear the decks, and also to really honor your life and share those stories with your loved ones? Because again, our lives matter, our legacy will live on beyond us. So make sure it's something that you actually want to pass on for others, but for you to enjoy right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's been absolutely lovely. Thank you again. Wonderful. Okay, guys, we're going to put you back into the, we've got Emma's off to do a physical photo book this afternoon. There we go. We're going to put you back into the waiting room. We're doing that now. The next session starts in 15 minutes for those of you who want to come in for that. So we will see you all then. Thank you so much. And thank you again, Jen. That was absolutely lovely.
Thanks.
Thank you. And stop recording.
Yes.
Probably.